Ignoring a stranger's warning, a guy rushed to a crucial meeting. What happened next? The subway rumbled through the shadowy tunnels beneath Chicago's vibrant streets. A crisp October evening in 2024 wrapped the city in a chilly embrace. Inside the packed car, an unspoken tension hung heavy, almost suffocating. Jake Thompson, mid-20s, gripped the metal pole to steady himself. His dark hair was slightly messy, hazel eyes scanning the crowd warily. A strange unease settled over him, like the hush before a storm's arrival. At the car's center, a burly man with bloodshot eyes caused a commotion. His slurred, liquor-soaked voice echoed loudly over the train's hum. He was harassing a woman seated nearby, his words sharp with mockery. She was striking, dark hair flowing, deep eyes radiating quiet strength. Her posture was calm, almost regal, untouched by the surrounding chaos. A faint crease near her lips hinted at the tension she held within. When she spoke, her voice sliced through the noise. Clear and firm. "People like you always jump to conclusions," she said with authority. "I don't read palms or gaze into crystal balls for futures." The drunk laughed, a harsh, grating sound, leaning closer to her. "Come on, lady, tell me what's coming," he demanded. Breath reeking. Passengers shifted awkwardly, their eyes avoiding the brewing trouble. When his taunts turned vile, laced with crude insults, Jake's patience broke. He stepped forward, heart racing, but his voice steady and resolute. "Leave her alone," he said, meeting the man's gaze without flinching. The drunk turned, sneering, sizing Jake up with a mocking grin. "Who are you, her knight in shining armor?" he taunted. Swaying slightly, the argument flared fast, words escalating to shoves in the tight space. Jake, leaner and less imposing, held his ground, dodging a wild swing. The driver's voice crackled sharply over the intercom, commanding attention. "Cut it out back there, or I'm calling the police," he barked. The drunk cursed under his breath, stumbled, and retreated to a corner. Jake, catching his breath, realized he'd missed his intended stop. He stepped onto the cold platform at the next station, mind racing. His pulse still thumped from the confrontation's adrenaline rush. A soft tap on his shoulder startled him, spinning him around. It was the woman from the subway, her dark eyes warm with gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying a faint, unplaceable accent. "I don't usually do this, but I owe you. Let me read your path." Jake blinked, caught off guard by her unexpected offer. He glanced at his watch, 6:30 p.m., feeling a surge of urgency. "Thanks, but I'm running late for something big," he said politely. Her gaze sharpened, as if peering straight through to his core. "You're hurrying to meet someone's family, aren't you?" she asked. Jake froze, stomach twisting with a jolt of surprise. "How did you know that?" he whispered, voice barely audible. "I don't," she replied, a small, mysterious smile on her lips. "But I see your nerves. Meeting parents, I'd wager?" Jake nodded, feeling oddly exposed under her intense stare. "Yeah, my girlfriend's parents. Huge night, and I'm already behind." The woman studied him, her expression cryptic and unreadable. "Enter through the side door," she called, turning to walk away. Jake frowned, puzzled by the strange, cryptic advice. "Side door?" he muttered, shaking his head in confusion. What an odd woman, he thought, brushing off the moment. He checked his phone, 6:45 p.m. now. Time slipping away fast. He was due to meet Sarah, his girlfriend of 2 years. Downtown, her parents were waiting at a fancy restaurant. A critical evening. This dinner was a milestone, a step toward their shared future. With no time to catch another train, he chose to jog the distance. The woman's words echoed unbidden, lingering in his mind. "Enter through the side door," she'd said, clear and deliberate. He pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to quirky kindness. Jake was still carving out his place in the world, finding his way. He graduated college a year ago, a milestone hard-earned. Now a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm. He was starting out. It was a solid job, but far from the glitz of wealth or status. Sarah, with her radiant smile and effortless charm, didn't mind. She loved him for who he was, not his modest bank account. But her parents, steeped in luxury, were a different challenge. Jake feared they'd see him as beneath their daughter's league. The thought gnawed at him as he ran, breath fogging in the air. His shoes pounded the pavement, each step fueled by anxiety. By the time he reached the restaurant, sweat soaked his shirt. It clung to his back. His face flushed, hair wildly disheveled. Perfect first impression for the in-laws, he thought bitterly. A wry chuckle escaped as he slowed, catching his breath. Approaching the main entrance, he spotted a small side door. It led to an outdoor patio, tucked away from the grand foyer. The woman's advice surfaced again, vivid and insistent. Enter through the side door. Her voice echoed in his head. It felt absurd, almost comical, but his gut urged him to listen. He slipped through the side entrance, moving quietly, discreetly. Inside, he stood near a large potted palm, blending into shadows. He smoothed his hair, adjusted his jacket, aiming to look composed. His breathing steadied as he tried to shake off the run's chaos. Moments later, a well-dressed couple stepped onto the patio. Their voices were low, conspiratorial. As they lit cigarettes, smoke curled into the night air, carrying their hushed words. Jake stayed still, unnoticed, not wanting to interrupt their talk. We must ensure she doesn't slip up, the woman said icily. Her tone was precise, calculated, sending a chill down Jake's spine. Tell the boy to watch her drinking, she continued, voice steady. We'll transfer everything to him. Wait 6 months, then a trip. The man exhaled smoke, his voice lazy but laced with menace. An accident on the honeymoon. Maybe? Quick and clean. The woman nodded slowly, a faint smile curling her lips. That could work. She says he's utterly clueless. Perfect. Jake's heart pounded so loudly he feared they'd hear it. Who were they plotting against with such cold precision? He peered through the palm's fronds, stealing a glance. The man had graying temples, exuding polished confidence. The woman was elegant, her beauty sharp and almost intimidating. They looked like typical wealthy patrons, not criminals scheming. Poor soul, Jake thought, his heart heavy for their target. The couple stubbed out their cigarettes and headed inside. Jake waited, his mind racing to untangle what he'd overheard. He took a deep breath, steadying his nerves, and moved on. He walked toward the dining area, his steps slow, deliberate. Sarah spotted him instantly, her face glowing with joy. Jake, you made it, she cried, rushing to hug him tightly. Come on, you have to meet my parents, they're so excited. Jake followed, each step heavier, his legs like lead. At their table, his blood turned to ice in his veins. There sat the couple from the patio, smiling warmly. Jake, a pleasure to meet you, the man said, extending a hand. I'm Richard, Sarah's father, he added, voice smooth. Jake shook his hand, his mind screaming in silent panic. These were the people plotting a murder. Cold and calculated. And I'm Margaret, the woman said, her smile polished. We've heard wonderful things about you, she purred. Jake forced a smile, sitting as Sarah beamed beside him. The dinner unfolded like a meticulously staged play. Richard asked about Jake's job, nodding with feigned interest. Margaret praised his manners, her eyes glinting with artifice. Sarah, unaware of the tension, squeezed Jake's hand under the table. They love you, she whispered, her voice brimming with happiness. Jake nodded, his stomach twisting into knots of dread. Was he the one they'd been discussing so callously? The pieces were aligning, forming a terrifying picture. Halfway through, Richard raised his wine glass for a toast. To Jake and Sarah, he said, his smile wide, practiced. We're thrilled to welcome you into our family. Jake, he paused, glancing at Margaret with a knowing look. And to celebrate, we're gifting you a dream honeymoon. All expenses paid, no worries at all, he added. Jake's smile froze, his throat tightening with fear. That's incredibly generous, he said, voice barely steady. Margaret joined in, her tone sweet but edged with something else. And post-wedding, we'll set you up in a stunning apartment. Sarah clapped her hands, her excitement pure and unguarded. See, Jake, I told you they'd absolutely adore you. Jake felt trapped in a performance, surrounded by actors. Every smile, every kind word, hid a darker intention. He excused himself to the bathroom, needing to escape. At the sink, he splashed cold water on his face, staring at himself. This can't be happening, he thought, but the truth was clear. The conversation he'd overheard was about him. No doubt, he was their target, the clueless fool in their plan. The rest of dinner passed in a haze. Jake on autopilot. He nodded, smiled, answered questions, but his mind was elsewhere. When it ended, he kissed Sarah goodnight, promising to call. Alone, his thoughts shifted to survival, to outsmarting them. The next morning, Jake and Sarah went to City Hall. They applied for their marriage license, a step toward their future. He played the happy fiancé, laughing, holding her hand tightly. Inside, he was strategizing, determined to stay ahead of the game. Sarah suggested a celebratory dinner at a restaurant. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation, oblivious to his turmoil. Jake shook his head, keeping his voice light and casual. "I'm thinking a guy's night instead," he said with a grin. "Hang out with my buddies. Have some beers, you know." Sarah's face lit up, completely unaware of his true motive. "That's perfect," she said, clapping her hands excitedly. "I'll have a girls' night with my friends. Make it a party." Jake kissed her forehead, his smile fading as she walked away. He didn't go to meet friends, he had a different destination. He drove to the apartment of Mike Carter, a high school friend. Mike was a private investigator with ties to law enforcement. Jake trusted him completely, knew he'd have answers. Over strong coffee, Jake recounted every detail of the ordeal. The subway encounter, the woman's warning, the patio conversation. Mike listened intently, his face hardening with each revelation. "You came to the right guy," Mike said, leaning back. "This is serious, Jake, but don't cancel the wedding yet." Jake stared, disbelief etched across his face. "You want me to marry into this nightmare?" he asked. Mike's eyes narrowed, his voice low and purposeful. "If you're in their circle, we can monitor them closely. They won't suspect you're onto them, it's our best chance." Jake hesitated, the decision's weight pressing heavily. He trusted Mike's instincts and nodded slowly. Resolute. "All right, but I need to know what I'm up against." Mike promised to investigate and report back soon. A week later, Mike called Jake to a quiet coffee shop. He slid a thick folder across the table, his expression grim. "Your future in-laws are trouble, Jake," he said, lighting a cigarette. "Their business looks clean, but it's a front for crime." Jake's throat tightened as he opened the folder. Hands unsteady. "A front for what, exactly?" he asked, voice low. Mike exhaled smoke, his tone steady but heavy. "Smuggling, mostly, high-value goods. Maybe drugs. They've been on law enforcement's radar for years." He tapped the folder, his eyes locked on Jake's. "And Sarah? She's not the innocent girl she seems." Jake's heart sank, dread pooling in his chest. "What are you saying?" he asked, barely whispering. Mike held his gaze, unflinching and direct. "She had a fiancé before you. Tom Harper. He vanished a month before their wedding. No trace." Jake's hands shook as he scanned the documents. "Vanished how? What happened to him?" Mike shrugged, his face a mask of resolve. "Sarah told everyone he ran off with another woman. Cops bought the story. Case closed. But it's fishy." Jake felt the air leave the room, his mind reeling. "They're planning the same for me, aren't they?" Mike nodded, his jaw tight with certainty. "You fit their profile, no close family. Just your mom and sister. They see you as an easy mark. Someone disposable." Jake clenched his fists, anger surging alongside fear. "What's the plan now?" he asked, voice firm. Mike leaned forward, his tone intense and focused. "Keep playing along. Act like everything's normal. We'll monitor your calls, your meetings, everything. If things go south, we'll pull you out, I promise." Jake swallowed hard, nodding with determination. "All right, I'm in. Let's do this." From that moment, Jake was no longer their pawn. He was a player in their game, ready to turn the tables. He decided to target Sarah, the family's weakest link. Mike had noted she got chatty when she drank too much. Her parents tried to control it, a vulnerability Jake could exploit. It was a risky strategy, but he needed solid evidence. At Sarah's bachelorette party, she was cautious, sipping slowly. Her friends laughed, toasted, but she stayed in control. Jake waited outside the venue, texting her as the night ended. "Missed you tonight," he wrote, adding a heart emoji. "Meet me after? I'll drive you home, babe." Sarah, relaxed from the evening, agreed without hesitation. She climbed into his car, cheeks flushed, smile easy. Jake kept the mood light, asking about her party. They drove to his apartment, chatting like any couple. Once there, he poured her a glass of red wine. He filled his own glass with water, staying sharp. How was the girl's night? He asked. Sitting beside her, Sarah giggled, sipping her wine, eyes sparkling. So much fun. My friends went all out. It was wild. The wine loosened her tongue as the night stretched on. Jake steered the conversation, his tone casual, deliberate. Your parents are incredible, he said, leaning back. Their business, their lifestyle. How do they pull it off? Sarah waved a hand, her laughter slightly slurred. That's not your business, silly, she said, grinning. But her guard was slipping, her words less guarded. She sipped again, eyes glinting with playful mischief. But if you want, you could join them, they like you. Jake raised an eyebrow, feigning eager curiosity. Join them? Like, in the family business? Sarah nodded, her smile widening, a bit sloppy. Yeah, a special part, a really big part. Jake's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice calm. What kind of part? Tell me more. Sarah leaned closer, her whisper teasing, edged. People who ask too much get lost in the woods. The words landed like a blow, chilling him. Jake forced a laugh, masking his rising fear. Lost in the woods? What's that supposed to mean? Sarah giggled, brushing it off, but her eyes darkened. He pressed gently, keeping the mood light, playful. I'd have to hustle to match your parents. He sighed. Otherwise, you'll ditch me for some rich guy. Sarah laughed, swatting his arm, wine spilling slightly. I'm not ditching you, Jake. You're perfect. She paused, then added, talk to my parents. They'd love to bring you into the business. Jake nodded, heart racing with the breakthrough. Tomorrow, maybe? I could meet them. Talk shop. Sarah hesitated, her glass pausing at her lips. They're busy tomorrow, she said, suddenly careful. Big shipment coming in, lots to handle. Jake's breath caught, but he hid his triumph. Shipment? Sounds like a big deal. Sarah's face tightened, regret flashing in her eyes. She'd said too much, and she knew it. She shifted topics, rambling about wedding plans, honeymoon destinations, dress fittings, guest lists. Jake played along, laughing, nodding, but his mind raced. The word, shipment, was the key he needed. He texted Mike the details as Sarah dozed on his couch. Mike moved fast, coordinating with his police contacts. On the shipment day, Richard and Margaret arrived at a warehouse. It was a nondescript building on Chicago's outskirts. They moved with the ease of routine, confident, untouchable. But this time, they weren't alone in the shadows. Undercover officers had staked out the site, radios buzzing. As the couple oversaw crate loading, police swarmed in. They were caught with illegal goods, millions in value. The arrests were swift, the evidence undeniable. Searches uncovered shell companies, fake invoices, accounts. Documents revealed years of smuggling, fraud, laundering. The family's empire, built on deception, collapsed overnight. News channels blared the story, showing Richard and Margaret cuffed. Jake watched from his apartment, relief mixing with unease. The threat was neutralized, but Sarah remained a question. How deep was she in? Was she a pawn or a player? Mike called the next day, his voice heavy, somber. Sarah's in deep, Jake, he said, no sugarcoating. She wasn't just along for the ride, she knew it all. Jake's heart shattered, though he'd braced for this. Sarah had grown up where money trumped morality. Her parents groomed her as an heir to their crimes. The plan for Jake was simple, chillingly efficient. Post-wedding, he'd be named a partner in a front company. During their honeymoon, an accident would claim him. A fall, a drowning, something tragic. Plausible. The family would play victims, blaming Jake for losses. They'd done it before with Tom Harper, Sarah's last fiancé. His disappearance was dismissed as a runaway groom. But Jake wasn't Tom. He'd seen through their lies. He'd turned their scheme against them, outsmarting them. When Sarah heard of her parents' arrests, she performed. I had no idea, she sobbed to police, tears flowing. But Jake's evidence, recordings, her slip, told the truth. Her lies unraveled, and she was arrested as an accomplice. Jake grappled with the betrayal for days, reeling. He'd loved Sarah, or the version she'd shown him. Her laughter, warmth, promises, all a crafted facade. Her charm had blinded him to the subtle warnings. The subway woman lingered in his thoughts, vivid. Her side door warning had set his survival in motion. Without it, he might have walked into their trap blind. Why had he trusted a stranger with no reason to help? Her sincerity stood out. Unlike Sarah's polished deceit, Jake learned a lesson. Painful but transformative. Appearances could mask danger. Wealth no measure of worth. He vowed to trust his gut. To prioritize honesty. The ordeal scarred him, but it forged resilience. He was grateful to be alive. To have escaped fate. Moving forward, he carried wisdom from the close call. He lived with purpose. Integrity guiding his path.